You're listening to the Undisputed Wrestling Show on AngryMarks.com, featuring Q-Ball Carmichael, Zane Paisley, Drew Skills, and the Morning Star, William Huckabee.
The Undisputed Wrestling Show is now. Welcome, everyone. This is the Beard Wonder, Zane Paisley. I've got with us tonight the Morning Star, Will Huckabee. How are you doing tonight, Will?
I'm doing good. I'm super excited about tonight's show, actually.
It's going to be amazing. We've also got guest hosting with us, Sign Guy from Turnbuckle Turmoil. How are you, Sign Guy?
Doing very well. Thanks for having me tonight.
Oh, we really appreciate it. In our second hour, we've got wrestling author Scott Teal. But in the first hour, our main guest, very happy to have him, the one half of the 10-time WCW Tag Team Champions and the former WCW World Television Champion, straight shooting, Stevie Ray. Stevie Ray, how are you this evening?
Pretty good. What about you guys?
Oh, we are doing fantastic. I've been hyping our interview with you for weeks. Very excited to have you on with us tonight. I'm going to save a few questions for a few minutes, but I'm going to kick it over to my brother Sign Guy. Sign Guy, what do you have for Stevie Ray?
Well, Stevie Ray, thanks for being on the show tonight. Appreciate it. And for the people that may not be familiar with how you got your start, can you explain how you got into the professional wrestling business?
Pretty much like most people back in those days. I went to a wrestling academy, trained to be a wrestler, and started doing indie shows. One thing led to another, and wrestling in the big time. So that's pretty much how it happened.
And you and your brother were in the Global Wrestling Federation when that was on ESPN every single day, 5 days a week. What led to you getting a job with a promotion that had national television at that point?
Actually, a magazine. They had seen my picture in a magazine, and I was like a heel in the South Texas area. So, and a couple of the guys up there, actually a couple of guys, they know me, and they were like, yeah, we know him. And the people in Global had informed them to tell me to come up for a interview and a tryout after the interview. So that's pretty much how it happened. We went up and actually I asked my brother to come go with me because you never know what might happen. And then when we got up there, we got up to Global, and Eddie Gilbert was in charge, and he didn't realize that I had a brother that worked also. And he got a wild idea, and he was like, hey, man, how would you like to be a tag team? And we was like, yeah, that's cool. And we called ourselves the Evident Experience, and that's it. All took off from there.
At one point in Global, you were doing a program with Gary Hart, who at that point had a lot of experience under his belt, was very well known. What was it like working with Gary Hart at that point in your career?
You know, back in those days, working, like I said, Global was full of talent. You know what I'm saying? We were green guys, but we was guided by the veterans and the people with all the talents, the people like Black Bart, Johnny Mantell, Manny Fernandez, Killer Tim Brooks, Iceman King Parsons, and like you said, Gary Hart, Skandar Akbar. I mean, these are legendary names, man, and we was in the midst of all that, you know, Wild Bill Irwin, you know, so it was just like, you know, top guys, you know what I'm saying, in a small organization like that. So it was like we just took in whatever advice they could give us, and we just kind of like ran with it. So we was kind of like the luckiest people allowed to be around that many great professional wrestlers at one time.
Global had, like we said, television 5 days a week. For someone that was relatively new to the business at that point, what did that exposure do for your career? Do you think that really prepared you for the bigger promotions sooner than it would have if you were strictly on the indies doing nothing but house shows?
Well, like I said, we were in the midst of some of the top wrestlers to ever wrestle in this business. So it had nothing to do with global, regardless what it was, whatever organization it was. When you got that kind of talent, grooming the younger guys coming up, you can't help but to get ready for the bigger time because you already in the big time with big name guys. The only thing is different from global and WCW was the production. The wrestlers were probably better. If you understand what I'm saying. The wrestlers were probably better because they had been there, done that. So getting you ready for something, getting ready for a big promotion, more lights, more camera, more people, that's one thing. In the ring, you still got to know what you're doing at the end of the day.
I believe you also had, prior to WCW, a few trips to Japan. What was the experience like for you going to Japan for the first time to wrestle?
Now, that's totally different. Going to Japan was a whole new way of life, just the culture, the way those guys did things. That was took a little bit to adapt to, but once we adapt to it, it was what it was. They didn't want to bring me and my brother back together anymore. They wanted to bring us over one at a time because together, I think we put like 3 guys in the hospital the first time we went there, and it was like, the Japanese guy was very stiff. They're more Americanized today, but back in those days were very stiff, very snug. So me and my brother kind of took exception to it, and I'm not going 10,000 miles for somebody to hurt me. I can do that at home.
And you also...
So we let go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say you also, late in your run in Global, was the Global Heavyweight Champion as a singles. At that point in your career, were you looking to go singles, or did you prefer tag teaming with your brother?
Back, I didn't care. As long as I was wrestling. As long as I was wrestling, back in those days, you had to love for wrestling so much. As long as you was in the ring doing your thing, just in the ring doing your thing. Whether it be tag team wrestling, singles wrestling, I just want to wrestle, period.
Did you find yourself having to change your style or how you prepared for a match when you went from tag team to single, or was it pretty much just straightforward for you?
Well, to be honest, I never tag team to me and my brother tagged in Global. We had never tagged before. So all the tag team I learned was like on the, and my brother was like on the fly. We were just imitating what we had saw on television. We had never tagged before Global. So we had only done singles matches for like 3 years before we came to Global. So I didn't know anything about tag team wrestling until I got with my brother, and neither did he.
You said you imitated what you'd seen. Who were some of the tag teams that you watched that you were imitating at that point?
Actually, what we were doing, back in, wrestling training, we had did, some tag matches, but not together. I might have been tagging with somebody. He might have been tagging with somebody else. That was back when we was being trained back in 1989. And so what we would do, we just look at the psychology of tag. What we did was just watch psychology of tag team wrestling on television and just emulated it. That's all we did. We knew what the baby faces were supposed to do, and we knew what the heels were supposed to do. Plus, we was getting a lot of help from the great wrestlers, like I said earlier, that were already there. So, just got us through it till we got it, and then we got better at it and got better at it and got better at it, just like anything else. Professional wrestling is no different than any other job. You get better and better as the time goes on.
So from Stevie Ray, thank you so much for being on with us tonight. We are on the Angry Marks Podcast Network. We've got Stevie Ray. Mm-hmm. Stevie Ray, before I ask my first question for you, what are some of the ways that our fans can follow you? Do you do any social media or anything like that?
Well, they can follow me on Twitter, and they can follow me on Facebook. Okay. So,
what's your Twitter?
Real Stevie Ray. Stevie Ray is Real Stevie Ray.
Excellent.
And my Facebook is just look up Stevie Ray, athlete.
Excellent. So when you came into WCW, they billed you from Harlem. Were you happy with that, or did you want to be billed from Houston?
I could care less.
Okay.
That kind of stuff has no bearing on anything. They could have said I was from Alaska or Timbuktu. Who gives a crap? Yeah, I'm trying to, in the professional wrestling business, I'm trying to wrestle. I don't care about, the things that really have no bearing on what you do in that ring. What you do in that ring and what the people see, it's really what makes you or break you, not where you're from. So I could care less about that. It's really academic, actually.
Okay. Did you have any input then in when they were bringing you out what your character was going to be when you joined WCW?
I could care less. I'm not, when you're trying to make it in the wrestling business, you don't really, concern yourself with things that are really, like I said, are academic to what you're trying to do. Okay. What you're trying to do is get in the ring. What me and my brother wanted to do was get in the ring and show people that we knew what we were doing and try to make a name for ourselves. So those things like that, like I said, they're not even worth talking about.
Okay. You guys certainly made a name for yourselves, feuding with Nasty Boys, Luger Sting, Public Enemy, Road Warriors, of course the Steiner brothers. Who were some of your favorite teams to work against?
I like working with all those guys, to be honest. We never did care too much about the Public Enemy thing, and we never did care too much about the Buckhouse Buck and Dick Slater, because we just never had good chemistry with those guys. But we made the best of it. It wasn't bad. It's just the fact that it wasn't what we were actually used to on a nightly basis. Well, we made the best of it, especially Public Enemy, because we never felt as though we should have even been in the ring with Public Enemy.
Why did you guys feel that way?
Because firstly, they were too small. Firstly, secondly, they couldn't really keep up with us. It was just like we had to slow our style down for those guys. You know what I'm saying? We didn't come from crashing tables on a bunch of bullshit like that. We came from working in the ring. Nothing against those guys personally, but that kind of shit, leave that shit in fucking ECW. Got nothing against it. I love watching it, but that wasn't Hall of Heat. We made our money by working in the ring and doing high impact stuff, not a bunch of gimmick gaga stuff. Nothing, like I said, nothing against those guys. They were two of my best friends. Me and Rocco hung out all the time, but that wasn't Hall of Heat. Secondly, these guys are coming from another organization and WCW pushing these guys. How stupid is that? You never push guys that's coming in from another, hey, they got to earn their way, put them against other guys and work their way up. You know what I'm saying? They ain't draw. We can draw big money all over the world, not in a building somewhere in Philadelphia. We draw money all over the world, if you understand what I'm saying.
Oh, I definitely understand.
Almost like a slap in the face. Nothing against them personally, but hey, don't use us to bring these guys up. Go use somebody else to do it. So we took exception to it.
What were your thoughts when they started bringing in celebrities like David Arquette and the Misfits and Insane Clown Posse?
That was WCW. They did some of the most stupidest shit known to man. That was WCW. WCW was ran by some of the most incompetent people on the face of this earth that thought they knew what, sports entertainment was about, and they didn't. There's a bunch of guys, it was too many Indians and not enough Indian chiefs calling the shots. And that's why you don't see WCW anymore. It was going, I knew it was the beginning of the end when all that kind of stuff. I mean, come on. Professional wrestling, you still have to have a certain respect for the game, regardless where it's going and regardless where entertainment is going. You still have to have a certain respect for the game. You will never see Hollywood bring in professional wrestlers and treat them like that. So why should we treat their people like that? It's crazy, stupid. And whoever thought of it, as far as I'm concerned, should be thrown out a window by Jim Brown.
Well, later on in your WCW run, you did a singles run and you joined the New World Order. And I gotta say, to me, my perception of you completely changed. I so much loved all of the promos that you did, your work on Thunder as a commentator. And definitely your work with Vincent, Virgil, Mike Jones, whatever you want to call him. Do you have any contact with Mike Jones anymore?
I see him every now and then, like at a wrestling convention or something of that nature. But I don't really keep in contact with professional wrestlers that I used to work with, other than maybe on social media every blue moon.
Okay, all right. I've been hyping your appearance on here, and I'm going to kick it to the Morning Star Will Huckabee real soon. But I've been hyping your appearance that you would call me Sad Sack Fruity Booty. Would you mind calling me that?
It's funny that the only time that I hear these words are from the fans. I actually have forgot about them until people remind me of them. I can't believe you still remember that.
Oh, I've been literally since we booked you on the show, probably about a month ago. Every show I've been saying, got to tune in. First show in February. Stevie Ray's is going to call me a fruity booty.
It's not fruity. It's just fruit.
Ah, I'm sorry, sir.
You said that booty. You know, fruit booty.
Well,
I think I'm gonna have to get some T-shirts made with that on it.
you do. You need to go Pro Wrestling Tees or something and have them sell some shirts for you. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, I don't know now who exactly is Pro Wrestling Tees.
They make a bunch of T-shirts for all sorts of stars of wrestling and current guys too. But like Fred Ottman, he's got some Shockmaster shirts on there. He's got Typhoon shirts, Tugboat shirts. You know, they'll go through your entire career. They can't use anything that is copyrighted by anybody, but you know, you can.
Well, none of my stuff is copyrighted because I came up with all of it.
That's right. That's right.
But I tell you what, man. When we wrap up, man, get with me. You know, after we finish up, you know, in a day or so, and you know, we'll try to help me put that together.
Okay, excellent. I'll shoot you something on Twitter about
it. Yeah, that'll be.
Okay.
Or you can, do that. No. Why don't you just shoot it straight to my number? Why don't you just do that?
Okay. I'll get it from our producer.
Or you can shoot it to my Facebook.
Okay, excellent. I will do that for you, sir. But I would love to buy a Fruit Booty T-shirt. So just letting you know that. So
right. Cool, man. Cool.
I'm gonna kick it over to the former NWA Continental Champion and current AWE star, the Morning Star, Will Huckabee.
Okay. Stevie, once again, thanks for being on the show, man. I'm super honored for you to be on the show, actually.
Cool.
My first question is this, and before I start asking questions, I guess it's more of a reflection. Being a black wrestler now and stuff, growing up, I was a huge wrestling fan, and there wasn't a lot of black wrestlers on TV. It was you were Booker T, Ron Simmons, Butch Reed, Norman Smiley, I think, Bad News Brown and stuff, Tony Atlas, and I think Rocky Johnson. Were you guys, as black wrestlers, were you guys very tight back in those days? Or did most of the time it was just you and Booker would go and do your thing, or what was the situation like?
I mean, yeah. I mean, me and my brother got along with everybody. Me and my brother pretty much got along with everybody. But, and we actually, a lot of African-American wrestlers looked up to me and my brother. And so we would try to, it's just like, Ron Simmons kind of took me and my brother under his wing when we first came up to WCW. So we kind of did the same thing with other guys that came in behind us. And we were kind of showing them how we carried ourselves. We kind of gave them the 411 on, do's and don'ts, things of that nature, and just kind of went from there. So, we tried to get along with everybody, man, because we wanted to see everybody make it and try to make a little money and try to get a little exposure and try, hopefully keep their careers going and things of that nature. So, yeah,
Now, I've got to ask, because everybody's seen the infamous promo where Booker T called Hogan a nigger. But I don't think anybody's really asked, so I'm going to ask you, what was going through your mind when he said it, and what was the first thing you said to your brother as soon as the camera got cut off?
Well, with all due respect, what you guys see on camera is really not what happened. What you're seeing on camera was a gaffe. We were doing a live interview, so I really wasn't listening to him. So if you really listen to it, he's trying to say like two words at once, and that came out. So I'm really not listening because I got to do my part in the interview too, and that's all you see on the YouTube thing is, it kind of cuts off right there. But I had another whole promo to do when that happened. So it's not like, okay, Booker T said this and I'm listening. I ain't listening to him. I got to do a promo myself. You understand? I mean, you know what I'm saying? So it didn't hit me like what you see on the YouTube that came out, I don't know how many years later. But in all actuality, I didn't really notice until, I still don't know when I noticed it. Maybe until somebody came up and said something. You know what I'm saying? Because I had to do a promo. So it's really not really like what you've seen, and it was that, it was that strong and so hard at that time, and everybody's listening to it like you listen to it when you're watching television or something. It wasn't like that.
Okay, all right. Because you guys really until somebody actually mentioned it, nobody actually paid attention to it, basically.
No, because got a promo to do. We had already did our promos earlier. Somebody came to us and said we got to do another one because that one was, I don't know. We getting ready to go. That promo was done live right before we went to the ring. And now we got to kind of remember everything they want us to talk about. Whereas when we do them earlier, if you make a gaffe, you just redo it. If you understand what I'm saying.
Uh-huh.
But if you're doing it live, you can't redo it because you're doing it live. Why anybody would do something live on a live pay-per-view is beyond any sane man's comprehension. Any fucking sane man's comprehension. Because you might mess up. That's why you don't see people doing live stuff unless they got cue cards. That's the entertainment business, period. But that was WCW. That was WCW. You got people that don't know what the fuck they're doing.
So you're talking about speaking live and everything. I've got to ask you, you guys back then, you guys wrote your own, you came up with your own promos. Nobody told you what to say. They gave you your bullet points, and then it was up to you to flesh out the promo and stuff. When you watch, I don't know if you watch the current product now, but if you do watch the current product now, how do you feel about the quality of promos that you see in different companies?
Well, the thing is, everything's so contrived now. Everything is scripted now. Back in the day, they just give you a subject and whoever it is to talk about, and you just did your own thing. That's why the promos back in the day was so funny. When you hear people talk about it, so funny. But some people just had this gift to talk about things, and some people didn't. And that's why now the product is, we got to write for everybody. Vince McMahon and WWF, WWE, whichever one you want to call it, whatever you're from, they started that, man. They started that, you know what I'm saying, because they were more about television. They were more about entertainment, whereas WCW is more about, entertainment, but wrestling at the same time. A lot of them didn't know how to get away from it. Frankly, it didn't make me any difference. I can do a live promo. I can do a scripted promo. And I'm going to do it the same Stevie Ray way. You wouldn't know if it was scripted or something that just came off the top of my head because I was good at it.
Now, another question I want to ask you and stuff is, wrestling, the majority of your career was in the South, Texas, Louisiana, the Carolinas, Georgia, that area and stuff. I know how it is now, being a black wrestler in the South now, because I live in North Carolina and I do a lot of shows and stuff in the northern Georgia, eastern Tennessee area and stuff. How bad were the fans back then, especially when you and your brother were heels? How bad was the fans, and how much racism did you guys experience?
Racism is racism. As far as the crowd, who gives a shit about them? As long as you pay the ticket, I don't care what you say. But as far as the people that's running professional wrestling, they had to be a little bit more discreet with it in a big organization like WCW, a big promotion like WCW, because you got back then was a part of Turner Broadcasting. But still, you still had, the thing that helped us out is people liked us and people were willing to pay to see us. And I'm going to tell you something, I've talked to a lot of people about a lot of things, so people book me to talk and things of that nature about my experiences and so on and so forth. I even go on a sports radio talk show here in Houston where I live a couple of times a month. And sometimes we talk about social issues, but mostly we talk about sports. And I give my opinion on things. And I tell people all the time, if it wasn't for the fact that African Americans were so good at what they do, and it makes people a lot of money in sports, you wouldn't see them out there either. If that makes sense to you. You wouldn't see black people. You would see a few of them that make up a quota, and that was it. But by the simple fact, they generate billions and billions of dollars. That's why you see so many of them out there. That trumps everything when it comes to the people that want to make big money. Other than that, you're going to be looking in the pool of 12%, or you're going to be looking at a pool of 69%. Think about that.
You're right. Last question before I pass it on to Zane. after the closing of WCW and everything, and you guys are going to WWE, at the closing, when WCW was closing, WWF was taking over, did you like the changes that were being made as far as wrestling was concerned?
In WCW?
Yes.
No. It's bullshit. As far as I'm concerned, WCW should have been closed a couple years earlier than that. It was garbage.
Yeah.
It was straight garbage. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the direction that they were trying to go in, nobody was going to buy that. Nobody's going to buy it. You know? And when they brought Vince Russo and them in, and you know, I've talked with Vince about this. I've never had anything against Vince Russo. But a lot of people just don't want change. It's a culture change. Vince Russo was trying to change the culture of WCW. And, you know, certain people wasn't having it, bro. That's the South. They wasn't having it. I mean, the show was okay, but it wasn't the same old WCW. One thing that made WCW was that it was totally opposite of WWF. Then when you start trying to make it WWF, what do you got? You ain't got shit. It's the same thing now. It's still the same product. The WCW product and the WWE product were totally different. Totally different. That's what made it unique, in my opinion, one man's opinion. But when you start having these same type of matches, these same type of interviews, these same type of analysts, you know, even trying to make the show look, hey, what do you got? What's unique about that?
It's WWE light, and who's going to do it better than WWE?
Now you see my point.
Oh, definitely. This is the Undisputed Wrestling Show on Angry Marks Podcast Network. We've got one half of Harlem Heat, Stevie Ray. Now, Stevie Ray, we mentioned WWE, and you had the honor of inducting your brother Booker T into the WWE Hall of Fame. What was that experience like? Were all the other guys warm and receptive to you coming in?
Who gives a shit about them?
Okay.
You honestly believe I'm going somewhere to give a shit about somebody accepting me? Kiss my ass, man. I went there for my brother and my family. Period. I mean, Stevie Ray, everywhere I go. You like me, you like me. You don't, you don't. Kiss my ass. That's the way it is. I live my life the way I want to live my life. And my life is crucial to me. It's very important to me. So I ain't never cared about wrestlers or anybody else liking me or disliking me.
Okay. So your life is crucial to you right now. What have you been up to? Are you still training people?
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I got a small trucking company that I run on a daily basis. And, you know, I still go out and do little indie stuff every blue moon when I got time to do it. And I still, you know, we got the ROW here in town that takes up a lot of my time. And, you know, hey, I do what I do. You know, just living life, man. Just living life. Still go out and do, you know, personal appearances here and there, you know, and, you know, hey, Stevie Ray just being Stevie Ray, bro. But the Hall of Fame was it was great to go, you know, just to go and dug my brother, and it was just a great environment, man. Just a great environment. But it was great.
Excellent. So if they were to offer you a spot in the Hall of Fame, would you be excited about that, or would it just be like, whatever?
What do you think?
I don't know. You said that you don't care what the other guys think about you, so I want to find out what you think.
I mean, shit, that's fucking self-explanatory. Everybody would love to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Every wrestler that's competed on the big stage. And if they say otherwise, they're lying. And I'll call them a lie. Right there. Right. You know, I mean, come on, that's the pinnacle of the business, you know? And,
I agree, but I wanted your take on it, so.
Yeah, but you asked a self-explanatory question. That's just like asking me if somebody give me $1 million, would I be happy about it? What do you think?
That's true. I
If I won the lottery, you know, $15 million, what do you think? Oh no, it was just fucking $15 million. Really? Come on.
Well, to kind of wrap up, what do you have to say to your fans listening to us right now?
Hey, just chime in. You know what I'm saying? Chime in to Stevie Ray on social media. And, you know, you can see a lot of what I'm up to and things of that nature. And that's really about it, man. You know, keep enjoying professional wrestling for what it's worth. because professional wrestling is near and dear to my heart. A lot of people have a lot of negative things to say about today's product, but today's product is just the evolution of everything. Everything evolves, and nothing stays the same.
Well, on that, what excites you about today's product?
That's a good question.
Well, thank you.
Because I don't get very excited about anything, to be honest. What excites me about today's product? Nothing really.
Okay.
It's just the fact that a lot of the guys from my era talk about today's product a lot, as you guys probably well know. Mm-hmm. But the product, it is what it. Nothing stays the same. It's just like, hell, when I was growing up, cars wasn't the same as cars today. Well, I got today cars and I got old cars too. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I love them. I love them both. So you got to take the good with the bad. You got to take the in with what's out. You know, everything evolves, man. I mean, people evolve. You know, clothes, fashion. You see a guy like Cam Newton right now getting backlash from people because that's not your culture. Got nothing to do. A lot of people want to make it about race. It ain't about race. It's about culture. A lot of people don't want change. A lot of people can't accept, evolution, and it's just that some people just need to open their mind more. The product today is good as compared to what they're going against. Today's stuff, today's things, today's situations. So that's what fans are into. So give it to them. That's the entertainment business, period. I came up listening to some of the best singers known to man, the best artists known to man, geniuses. People today can't really hear geniuses. They hear what sells. That's the evolution of the music business. I came up on television shows that give you moral values to look at, that really scripts that was wrote to make people think and make people think about themselves. Only thing they sell on television now, to me, is sex. That's the evolution of the entertainment business. So what can you do about it? Nothing, because they're going to do what they do to make their dollar, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, thank you so much for Stevie Ray for being on our show tonight. We really appreciate it. And I've already posted something on Facebook. I sent you a message about Pro Wrestling Tees. I'm not a shill for them, but I would seriously buy shirts that you came out with. I posted something on my Facebook, and I've already got a couple people excited in these last 2 or 3 minutes. So I definitely think you need to check that out. And I
actually hadn't. I don't know if someone mentioned that to me once. It was maybe a year or two ago, or something like that. Then when you said it again, I've never heard it before. Well, I never expounded on it. So this time I'm going to.
Well, excellent. We really appreciate it. And we know Sucka's got to know about the Undisputed Wrestling Show and Stevie.
Oh, man, that's another one I can use.
Oh, yeah. I'm telling you, I would buy them all. I'm completely serious. I loved your work. I loved your work with your brother in the tag in Harlem Heat. But you really changed my perception. I was, my early 20s when you started with the NWO, and you really changed the dynamic for them, and you changed how I saw you. Went from the tough guy to a funny tough guy, which I think you is more of what you are in real life.
I never heard anybody put it like that before.
Well, would you agree? Do you like that perception of being the funny tough guy?
I just never heard it put like that before. I used to hear a lot of people come up to me and say, man, some of the stuff that you say during commentary just really cracks me up. And I was like, really? I never knew it was that funny to people, until people start telling me about it. So,
well, but it was different when you said it versus somebody like Mark Madden saying it, because we know that you knew how to back it up. You weren't just saying words to get yourself over. You really meant it, right. And you knew what you were talking about.
Right. Well, I appreciate that, man. And I've always liked being behind the mic. A lot of people didn't know that I actually went to school. I wanted to be a DJ when I got out of high school. If you can believe that. And I used to commentate all the matches in the dressing room for the guys when they're looking at the monitor. So I would commentate the matches so the guys would, we couldn't hear Tony Schiavone and them in the dressing room. So I took it upon myself to do it. Somebody heard me do it, and they went to the producers, and they said, "Hey man, we want to put you out as a," and I'm like, "What?" So it was never my choice to do that. I don't know who did it. I don't know who went to the writers. To this day, I still don't know. But they said, "We heard that you commentate pretty good, so we want you to do it." That's how that whole thing took off. I didn't know at the time. I didn't know. I just was doing what I was told, and I was like, "Well, I want to wrestle." "Well, we don't want you wrestling, and we need a wrestler out that can commentate." And I was like, "A wrestler?" So, it was just one of them things. I thought it was just going to be for, a couple appearances, but then it started getting over so much that fans started writing in saying how much they liked it, so they kept me out there.
Well, I appreciate that. That was one of the smart decisions that WCW made. One of the few, but one of the best ones.
Now you were talking.
Yeah.
Now you're getting it. Now you're getting it. So that's what happened.
Excellent. Well, seriously, thank you so much for coming on tonight. We really appreciate it.
Hey, man.
And I
appreciate you guys having. No problem, brother. Thank you.
All right. Will, fine guy. That was a lot of fun.
Well, Zane, you're officially a sad sack fruit booty.
Yes.
I know, right?
One of the highlights of my broadcasting career, that being called a sad sack fruit booty by Stevie Ray, and cracking him up, and hopefully he's going to make some money off selling some T-shirts. One of my other highlights was talking to Dan Severn about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I've got a lot on my resume.
Okay, well, if you don't give me some royalties for that, Zane, I mean, because looking at you, I don't think you would have had the T-shirts and stuff. So he might need to kick you back some money, man.
Hey, if out of all this I get a free T-shirt, then that would be great. I'll talk to my buddy Dean Jackson, who designs for them, and see if he can make one that says, "I got called a sad sack fruit booty by Stevie Ray." I would wear that proudly.
Would you wear it at 1151 South Kentucky Avenue on Fridays?
No, I would wear it before I go out to the ring, but I have to dress up. I have to wear the tie out in the ring. So
darn Don Basher's dress code.
Well, I don't know if it's actually Don Basher's dress code, but that's my personal dress code.
Well, then I take back what I said about Don Basher's dress code, because I still want to get booked there.
That's right. Well, let me reset everything. This is the Undisputed Wrestling Show. We are on the Angry Marks Podcast Network. It is the home of the best podcasts for mixed martial arts and professional wrestling. And they've got shows every single night of the week, a couple on the weekends. After our show tonight, if you're sticking around, you can hear Impact Implosion. Our friends our brothers at Impact Implosion will be breaking down all the TNA action. Now that it's moved to Tuesdays, they'll be on after us. So very, very good stuff. Before I kick it to Will, because I know Will's always got something to talk about. Sign guy, you've been a frequent guest and helped us out as a co-host. Can you give our listeners some of your info?
Sure. I've been around the business for a long, long time. Started out at Hoosier Pro Wrestling in Columbus, Indiana, where I'm in the Hall of Fame, class of 13. Multiple-time tag team champion with the High Rollers. Iceman, Ronnie Vegas, TJ Powers, Austin James, and myself were the High Rollers many, many years. In the Pacific Northwest, I've worked for several different companies as an official, co-owner of a company, wrestler, manager. I've done everything except for take tickets. I'm involved in the NWA down at NWA Blue Collar Wrestling in Portland, Oregon, which Will Huckabee also is graced. Zane, you're the only one that's not been to NWA Blue Collar.
Oh, I will correct that hopefully sometime in 2016.
That would be tremendous. And I once defeated Buddy Highway for the NWA Blue Collar YouTube Championship. I'm actually a 2-time holder of that title.
Well, when I make it out there, do you think that they could book me as an announcer?
I would see what I can do on that. I think there's a very solid chance.
Maybe just as a dark match announcer. That'd be fine with me. Just as long as I can say that I was booked.
I will put in a word, and I know that there's other members of the locker room who happen to be fans of you, so I think with our powers combined, we could get that done.
That's scary. Tell our listeners about what you do almost every single night on Turnbuckle Turmoil.
Well, Turnbuckle Turmoil, myself, QT Vokes, Dimitri, and my women's expert Cameron Starr, we interview wrestlers from around the world. We mainly focus on independent professional wrestling, but sometimes we'll delve into a little bit of the mainstream promotions, but our main focus, main drive's independent. This coming week on Friday afternoon, we have Nurse Sanity out of Oklahoma, who's a rising female talent. Sunday afternoon on Turnbuckle Turmoil, we'll be having Promoters Days. We have a few promoters that are going to join us, talk about that aspect of the business, including NWA Circle City promoter JT Branham, NWA Blue Collar Wrestling promoter Patty Dietz, and scheduled to have, I have to confirm with him to see if he's still on, but someone you may have heard of, Q-Ball Carmichael.
Oh, Q-Ball would rather do your show than ours sometimes.
Well, sometimes you have priorities.
Well, and tell briefly, because I know Will's just chomping at the bit, briefly tell our listeners about some of the other shows on the Turnbuckle Turmoil Network.
Well, Friday we have a Sign Guys Wrestling show. Sunday it's Turnbuckle Turmoil. On Wednesdays, Rex Sharp and I do Total Dudes, which recaps Total Divas on the E! Network. Sometimes we delve into some interesting topics on there, including tea. We're big on tea on that show. And starting in a few weeks on Thursday, it's going to be the return of Von Hess's program. He runs his show, used to be The Lounge, and now it's, I believe they're going to be changing things up. I'm not sure what name he's going to come out with this incarnation of his show, but I believe we're looking at a late February return for Von Hess.
Well, excellent. I was just joking about Q-Ball not being on the show. He is having some family stuff go on right now, so all of our thoughts and prayers are with Q-Ball and his family right now. So, and Drew Skills, he's taking a brief sabbatical from the show this week. He's scouting out some talent and some areas for us, so we're really appreciative of that. What we do have, especially this evening, we are so graced to have the Morning Star Will Huckabee for both hours tonight. Will, what's been going on, brother?
Man, first of all, you forgot to tell everybody it was my birthday. You should have announced
Oh, yes! Well, it's
you
your birthday eve.
Birthday week.
Exactly. This is the Will Huckabee birthday edition of the Undisputed Wrestling Show. We got to tell Stevie Ray that, okay?
Oh,
I forgot to tell
so
Stevie.
sorry.
But you forgot to announce it at the beginning of the show, man.
I'm sorry, it's the birthday eve episode, so most of our listeners listening to this on the archives, on iTunes, keyword Angry Marks, subscribe, hit all those up. They'll be able to wish you a happy birthday.
Exactly. Okay, like most of the time, by this time tomorrow, it'll be my birthday. So technically, this is the birthday edition of the Undisputed Wrestling Show. But getting backtrack to your original question, I actually had a really busy weekend. Friday night, I don't know if anybody follows me on Instagram, William Huckabee, or on Facebook or Twitter at WA Huckabee. You would see I had pictures of stuff at Steve Carino's PWF in Hewitt, North Carolina, where they were doing a huge fundraiser for a lady, Andrea and stuff. And we had like 400 plus people in the building. It was legitimately standing room only, Zane. what Steve does is he has like a VIP show for people who buy like VIP passes and stuff. So he'll have like 2 or 3 matches, specifically for those fans and stuff. And then he has the actual show that starts at 7. Well, at 6:30 for the VIP show, the building was already sold out. It was already, like, every chair was already full. We had no chairs left in the building before 7 o'clock actually hit. The actual general admission, fans were let in. By the time they let those people in, like I said, it was like 400 plus people in this small bingo hall. It was such a great night. We raised a lot of money for a really good cause. Tommy Dreamer was there, C.W. Anderson, ROH star Cedric Alexander. So it was really good. I actually won a 2 out of 3 falls against the Michigan assassin Bobby Wolford. So that was cool. Then early Saturday, I woke up early, went to the gym. And then straight from there, I went to the Tommy Dreamer seminar. He had a seminar at the Coastal Wrestling Academy, which is Steve Carino's wrestling school here in Cuba, North Carolina. Went and did that from 11 to about 2:30, 3 o'clock. Learned a whole lot. Some things I'm going to tell you off the air. Zane and Ted, completely changed my perspective about a lot of things business-wise as far as wrestling goes. And then I had NWA Mid-Atlantic Saturday night. And there I actually, which is so ironic, I was supposed to have wrestled Lance Erickson for the NWA Mid-Atlantic Championship, and that didn't happen because of, travel and other things and stuff. And the lines of communication kind of broke down for some reason or another. So I ended up facing Steve Carino's son, ROH top prospect, Kobe Carino, in a very hard-hitting match. I ended at the end of the night, I ended up with a broken tooth.
Oh my!
I will not lie. It was one of the hardest. The only other person who actually messed my teeth up or break a tooth or whatever was the AIWF World Heavyweight Champion Damian Wayne. That was about 3-4 years ago. He had to kick me in the mouth to break a tooth. Kobe Carino, Steve Carino's son, slapped me so hard in the mouth that he actually broke a tooth. So as of
No, go ahead.
That was my weekend. Sunday I was in urgent care. Trying to get something for the pain.
So how did your lovely wife deal with that? Were you a baby all weekend, so she was taking care of all the kids and you? She actually knows what pain. Any adult who's ever had a toothache or had a broken tooth or a cavity or something, you understand. They understand the sympathy, the pain that you're going through and stuff. And you have to be a very heartless bastard to not be sympathetic to somebody with a broken tooth or stuff. Have you ever had a broken tooth or a chipped tooth or a cavity or something or a root canal vein? Yeah, they're no fun.
Exactly. I think I got maybe 3 hours of sleep between Saturday and Sunday.
That's no good.
I was in legit pain, man, and she was very sympathetic. It was okay. But like I said, it was a great weekend for wrestling, a great weekend for learning, and a great weekend for dentists in my area.
All right, guys, we'll hit some topics here in a few seconds. I do want to let our listeners know that we've got awesome wrestling author and historian Scott Teal coming up in the second hour. We're very excited. We've been trying to get Scott Teal on the show for quite a while, so we're very lucky to have him on with us tonight. Next week, we've got a killer show. We've got Malcolm Monroe II on in the second hour, and in the first hour, we've got Ring of Honor star and former Indianapolis Colt Moose will be on with us. Very excited to have him on. On the 16th, we've got confirmed TNA star Robbie E will be joining us, and we're working on another special guest that if it comes through, it's going to be amazing. On the 23rd, we've got somebody sign guy. We've got the Gresham Savior, the NWA Pacific Northwest champion, Buddy Highway. And in the first hour, I'm marking out. I'm huge fan. Seriously, my favorite tag team of all time. Demolition, Axe, and Smash will be joining us on the 23rd. Very excited about that. And then in March, we've already got a couple guests lined up for March. For March 1st, we've got the Wrecking Ball Legursky joining us. And in the main hour, we've got ROH Tag Team Champions War Machine is going to be joining us. And on March 8th, we've got former WWF Tag Team Champion Headbanger Thrasher joining us. So we've got a lot of great shows lined up.
On the 23rd, could you have booked anyone else that's fought me? That 2 out of the 3 guys I've been involved in fights with in my career.
Well, tell us more.
Well, I once...
You've already mentioned Buddy Highway. You defeated him for the Pacific Northwest NWA Blue Collar YouTube
Championship. Yes, I did. And on one time in my career, Demolition Axe and I had a little bit of run, and he may have hit me in the head with my own sign.
Well, you probably deserved it.
I was just sitting there minding my own business. I can't help it if I may have slipped and fell into him a couple of times.
Mm-hmm. Did you say was that Axe or Smash that did that to you?
That was Axe.
Oh my. Have you ever had any run-ins with any of those guys, Will?
Say that again, Zane?
Have you had any run-ins with Axe or Smash or Buddy Highway?
Actually, yeah, I actually have. Axe and Smash actually gave me some, besides, meeting seeing them at fan conventions and stuff, they actually gave me some really good advice when I first broke into wrestling, and I had like this really shitty temper, so I had like a really bad temper, especially when guys blew spots and stuff. They gave me some really good advice for that. And then, of course, I ran the Buddy Highway, whatever the hell his name is. I ran into him and stuff, I might have run in or 3 with him backstage at NWA Blue Collar.
Excellent. All right. You guys want to talk about some current events before we get Scott Teal on?
Sure.
You ready, Will?
Of course, Dan. Let's go.
Okay. Well, Shinsuke Nakamura is going to be debuting at the NXT TakeOver the Friday night before WrestleMania. So that WrestleMania weekend is going to be in Dallas, and Friday night it's going to be NXT TakeOver. Saturday night will be the WWE Hall of Fame ceremony, which Booker T said, of course. That's a self-explanatory question. Everybody wants to be in it. And then followed by WrestleMania. But Nakamura is going to be taking on Sami Zayn. What do you guys think of that news? Sign guy, hit you first.
Hopefully Sami Zayn will make it to the ring without blowing out his shoulder.
That would be
yeah, I think it'll be good for the company bringing in Nakamura, because really they don't have very many Japanese stars right now. They've traditionally tried to have 1 or 2 on the roster to bring in that demographic, and speaking from someone that was here for the entire Ichiro era of the Seattle Mariners, Japanese fans love to see their own compete in the United States. So I think you'll be able to draw a lot of the Japanese fans that are currently living in the United States that are familiar with him from Japan. So I think it was a good move to bring him in. I don't know if style-wise he'll be able to adapt very quickly or not. It seems like they're going to try to rush him out there. Hopefully he can adapt and wrestle more of a American television style rather than what he's probably used to. But, we'll have to wait and see what specific plans they have for him. But it seems awfully soon to be using him to bring him out there. Really the biggest stage that NXT will have all year probably, and they're going to put him out there. Not only that, they're promoting him the heaviest because they've already announced his match. They haven't announced any other matches that I know about for that particular show.
No, actually, I think they've got, I'm not sure if they have the full card yet, but I know it's going to be Bayley versus Asuka, which will be a tremendous match. The Mechanics are taking on American Alpha. So Dash and Dawson will be taking on Jordan and Gable for the Tag Team Championship. And it's going to be Finn Balor and Samoa Joe rematch for the NXT Championship. So it's going to be a stacked card. It's going to be an amazing card. So what are your thoughts, Will, on Nakamura debuting in Dallas?
First of all, I'm kind of mad that they went ahead and announced it. I'm starting to realize, excuse me, the more the time is going on and stuff, the more I'm starting to realize how much I hate spoilers. Like, how great would the Royal Rumble been if nobody knew that AJ Styles was there? You know, how great would NXT Takeover be if all of a sudden Nakamura just shows up and nobody knows? Although I'm very excited that he gets a chance to work with WWE, I think it's great that more fans will actually be exposed to Nakamura, who, in my opinion, is probably one of the greatest Japanese wrestlers of the modern era. I'm kind of torn because I really feel like with a lot of guys, like for instance, where is what's his name? I can't remember the first Japanese wrestler's name. I can't remember his name now for some reason. Come on, Zane, help me out.
Japanese wrestler Taka Michinoku? Yoshi
No.
Katsu?
Hideo Itami?
Oh, Hideo Itami, Kenta, yeah.
Yeah, where's he at? You know what I'm saying? Like,
he's hurt. He's hurt. They were. I think that they were going to put the NXT belt on him at that Japan House show that they put on the WWE Network, but he got hurt before that. And from what I've read recently, the prognosis hasn't been good. They want him back as soon as they can. They made action figures for him, you know. So they definitely want him on the scene, but he's been hurt.
You know, I just feel that with Nakamura stuff, the stuff that's made him famous, the things that's gotten him over, like a lot of their stars, they're not going to allow him to do that. He's not going to be the same Nakamura as he was in Japan. His matches, of course, are going to be shorter. We're not going to get 25, 30 minute matches that he's used to. They're going to be shorter. A lot of his traditional moves, I definitely don't think they're going to let him do the Bumaye knee, especially to the back of the head, especially with the concussions and stuff. A lot of his moves are very aimed towards the head and stuff, and if taken wrong, can give you a concussion. So, like I said, I'm glad that he's going to be there, but at the same time, I'm very disappointed that he's going to be there because I know that the Nakamura that everybody loves, that everybody knows and stuff, is not going to be the same wrestler that Vince puts out there to the rest of the world.
Well, he is called the King of Strong Style, and I don't know how much of the strong style he'll be able to use under the WWE umbrella, but I think, I know from what I've seen of him, he's got enough charisma that he can, he can get over anywhere, and I think it's a great pickup for the WWE. And I know, at least I think part of it is probably because they have expanded the WWE network over to Japan. So if those, those rabid fans that have been watching him for years in New Japan get a chance to see him on NXT, that might be worth their $9.99 or whatever the equivalent is. So I think it's good for them.
Without a shadow of doubt, Nakamura is one of the most charismatic wrestlers in wrestling, period. And the fact that there's so many, I guess you could say, weird facts about him, like the fact that he is a huge Michael Jackson fan. Mm-hmm. The fact that, he is a trained MMA fighter, that he is a superb all-Japan amateur wrestler and stuff. Those things are amazing. If they can find a way to incorporate that into his WWE, his quote-unquote WWE story, and allow that part of his personality to come out, will be fantastic. For anybody who watched the last Wrestle Kingdom and stuff, his match with AJ Styles, when AJ Styles did the whole Bullet Club, point the gun, shoot, taunt at him and stuff, and he acted like he caught the bullet and swallowed it. That was a perfect example of his charisma and stuff, and just his how fast he thinks on his feet and stuff, and how funny he can be at times without having to say anything. So hopefully, they'll be able to bring that part of his character out. But I really doubt that we're going to be able to see that part of him. I think that we're going to get a very Venus Digest condensed version of the wrestler that we know right now.
Okay. All right. I don't have the El Rey Network. Have you guys seen the season premiere of Lucha Underground Season 2?
I've not seen the premiere yet. I was going to watch it, and it's in HD, and my box is compatible, so I'm looking for alternative ways to watch it because I missed last week. It was almost over by the time I remembered it was on, and by then I was like, yeah, it's too late now.
What about you, Will?
Oh, my God. Let me tell you something. I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but let me tell you that as of right now, that is probably the most creative company right now. And I know there's a lot of old school wrestlers who hate the concept of, Lucha Underground having seasons or that they're more about the fact that it's a TV show because Mark Burnett, the guy who did Survivor, is one of the executive producers and stuff. And they might not like, the high-flying style. But the truth is, there's a lot of people who don't like Ricochet / Prince Puma. They don't like his style. They don't like, his ring work or whatever. But talking about the company, talking about Lucha Underground, talking about the season premiere, it was amazing. Very, especially now that I'm in the business and stuff, there are very few times where I can actually see an entire show or an entire episode and be like, holy shit, I need to go back and watch this all over again. I did that with this past episode of Lucha Underground. I did it with Wrestle Kingdom. And I did it for the Monday Night Raw right after the Royal Rumble. So I'm really excited about the future of wrestling because it seems like now companies like New Japan and Lucha Underground and even to a point TNA are really starting to push the envelope. And I think that the guys in Connecticut are starting to sweat because now there's other products for people to look at and people are getting excited about. But getting back to your question, Lucha Underground, it was amazing. It's nowhere near as happy-go-lucky, I guess you could say, or lighter as far as comedy goes as season one. It's like I know you've seen the memes and the statuses on social media saying it's a lot darker. And it really is. It's a lot grittier. It's a lot darker. It's a lot more adult-friendly. It's not very kid-friendly. Season two, if season two is anything like how the season premiere was, it's definitely not something that you really want your kids to watch. Because it's so much more gritty, so much more violent than season one was.
Okay, well, it is definitely a different program. Have you guys heard Jim Cornette's thoughts on it?
Yeah, he's not so much a fan.
No, not so much.
But is Jim Cornette really a fan of anything not Smoky Mountain Wrestling or Jim Crockett Promotions?
I don't know. I thought it was funny. I thought his little tirade was funny, and I respect a lot what he says. But it definitely is different product than what he enjoys.
I mean, no disrespect to Jim Cornette whatsoever. Probably one of the greatest managers of all time. One of the greatest wrestling minds of all time. Fantastic wrestling booker and stuff. But you have to remember, playing the devil's advocate, this is the guy that said that Kevin Owens would never draw. This is the guy that at one point on ROH had Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, Colt Cabana, all in the same roster and didn't like any of them. Had a chance to sign who is now Dean Ambrose to ROH and did not like his look or anything about him. Basically called him a garbage hardcore wrestler. So, can we really put so much stock in Jim Cornette now? Especially now that wrestling is evolved, or do we feel like a lot of what he's saying now is just, shock treatment or being a shock job?
Well, he does try to get listeners to his podcast, and our friend Kenny Bolin said, he needs to be on there every week, and they'll get the best ratings that they ever will, and he might have a point. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he's doing it just to get more listeners. Or if those are his real feelings. So, all right. Yesterday, Bret Hart revealed that he is fighting prostate cancer. My father is prostate cancer survivor, so it is definitely something that can be cured, and we're all pulling for Bret Hart. I've got a personal Bret Hart story. I had a chance to meet him a few years ago in Fort Wayne. Very gracious man. Very nice guy. And I actually had a chance to interview him. Unfortunately, it wasn't for the Undisputed Wrestling shows, for another podcast that I helped out. We talked about Rob Ford, the mayor of Toronto, for a few minutes. So that was interesting. Sign guy, you have any Bret Hart recollections?
I met him briefly at a book signing in suburban Seattle a few years ago. Very nice. Took time with everybody that was there. There were easily a couple hundred people in line, and he did not rush anybody. Took the time, shook everyone's hand, talked to them for a couple of moments, signed whatever they had. Very, very gracious. Hopefully they'll be able to treat this prostate cancer, one of the more treatable cancers, that is out there, so hopefully he'll have a good prognosis. We also have a local manager out here by the name of Dale Pierce, who has managed all over the country since the early 80s. He's battling prostate cancer, doing very well so far with the treatment, so I know it's treatable. So hopefully Bret Hart's prognosis is going to be very good, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong here, Will and Zane, but I believe Bret's brother also revealed in the last couple of weeks he has prostate cancer.
I have not seen that.
I didn't see
anything about that either.
I want to say it was Smith Hart, and just in the last couple of weeks he revealed that he had prostate cancer as well.
Well, that's too bad for the whole Hart family. Will, do you have any stories about Bret Hart you'd like to share?
I don't have any Bret Hart stories. Unfortunately, I've never. Well, correction. I guess you could say I've met him, but at the time I was like 7 years old. Anybody that knows me, I tell the story over and over again how my mother was a nighttime desk clerk and stuff at the Marriott at Lambert Airport in St. Louis and stuff. So a lot of times when NWA or WCW or Jim Crockett Promotions, whatever, when they would come through, the wrestlers would come through, a lot of times they would stay at the Marriott in St. Louis and stuff. And so I got a chance to see a lot of these guys as a kid. They were so huge and everything. But I do remember seeing Bret Hart when I was a kid. And this was before he actually got his run. I think he was still green. He was still part of the Hart Foundation with Neidhart and stuff. But I remember as a kid, they were always really cool. And he always would give me like a dollar for some reason. He would come to the desk with me and my brother Damien and stuff. We'd be kind of hiding behind the desk looking at him. And he would always give me and my brother a dollar and stuff and then walk off.
That's awesome. All right.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, Zane, what do you think that, now that Bret Hart has came out with cancer and stuff, do you think, because as far as I know, he's still under a legal contract with WWE, isn't he?
I believe so.
Do you think that during Breast Cancer Awareness Month, or do you think they're going to actually start promoting other cancers, I guess, not just Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but cancer period? I would really like for them to, because they have so many male wrestlers over the age of 35, 40, which is when men are supposed to start getting checked, having a prostate checked for cancer stuff. I would really like for them to start seeing or start promoting, men getting checked up or getting checked out and stuff.
I don't see that happening because, they're in with the Susan G. Komen Foundation, which I'm not a huge fan of them because not a lot of their donations actually make it to any sort of cancer research or help women with cancer. But I would love for them to do, November is Men Cancer Awareness Month. That's why the Novembeard is so popular. I would love for them to do initiatives for all sorts of cancers. I think that's a great point, and maybe this hitting so close to home for the WWE, maybe it will kick them right in the tail to start doing some more philanthropy, not just through Susan G. Komen, but I have so many personal stories, friends that have been fighting cancer, and it's they do sell the Connor's Cure bracelets. I've recently met Chase, who his father started a Chance for Chase, and the Handicapped Heroes are working with him to get their Wrestling for Warriors promotion started, where they're going to help out all sorts of charities focusing on kids. It sucks that WWE sells their pink T-shirts for a month a year. If they focus more on all sorts of cancers or all sorts of health issues, it would make me feel better about the product that we're watching. What are your thoughts, Sign Guy?
Well, I think WWE trying to do the right thing when they do this. They're at least, making an effort to try to raise the awareness and try to get people to donate, maybe research different causes and donate to the cause they think is best. But I don't know if they'll do a prostate awareness, just because when you look at the landscape of things, if they're using guys like a Ric Flair and they bring in some of the legends that are in their late 40s to early 50s, Shawn Michaels, for example, Kevin Nash, that's the age when prostate cancer happens. So you were to use those guys and then you're promoting prostate cancer awareness, it might take away some of the invincible aurora that some of the legends would have if you were promoting that, and they're in the target range of the people that get prostate cancer for the most part, because prostate cancer usually hits late 40s, early 50s. So I think that's probably somewhere in their thinking on that. They probably just don't want to raise the consciousness of the people that, hey, the guy that's fighting in a match next month, that legend, he might be wanting to get a check for his prostate because apparently he's in that age range. So I think that might be something to do with a little bit of image protection there.
Well, but didn't they do the whole gimmick with JR getting a prostate or a colonoscopy on air and all that a few years ago? Ridiculousness.
You know, can I say something to that, Zane?
Go for it.
I think that the discussion has actually kind of been going around ever since Bret Hart announced this. And, you know, unfortunately, I've seen a lot of people make a joke about that, or even the reference to JR. You know, the sad fact is this. They don't have to stick anything up your butt to test for this. The most reliable test to see if you have this is a blood test. So when you're going in and you're getting your annual exam, have them do a full blood workup. That's it. They're already going to be drawing the blood anyway. It's just one more simple thing that you can screen for. If there are any early warning signs, it shows up in your blood work. So there's no reason not to do it.
Thank you, Killer Kev. Producer Killer Kev being the voice of reason. I know that we have a lot of male listeners. You know, go get your annual physical. Go have them check for things. It's not that intrusive, as Kev just said. You know, you should be going to the doctor, taking care of yourself. So do that. If you haven't had an exam since 2014, then you missed last year. Go ahead and call your doctor and schedule that right now.
And for good God's sakes, you're covered under Obamacare now. Go to the damn doctor. Stop delaying it.
Yep. All right. Well, you got anything else to add to that? Thank you for bringing that up about WWE doing more than just October.
No. I think we come pretty good about it, man. I think it'd be pretty cool if they made all the superstars not shaved, or all the male superstars. Think about if John Cena had to grow a beard for like all of November. I think that'd be cool if they had a legit shoot contest. Started November 1st to the 31st, where guys had to grow a beard and stuff, and then they had like females vote or something. I don't know, for a manliest beard. It'd be pretty cool.
I don't know if I'd want to see somebody like Neville trying to grow a beard. I don't know if that would work very well.
Or Dolph Ziggler.
It would throw off the aerodynamics.
That's right. So okay. I don't know. We've got very short time. Would you guys rather talk about Sonny and China or Marty Jannetty?
I would rather talk about Trina Michaels and Sonny.
Okay, well, shoot. Our former guest, and she was amazing on the show, Trina Michaels. What are the news about her?
If anybody follows Trina Michaels on Twitter, because she doesn't have a Facebook, people, and she said that on our show, she doesn't have a Facebook, she has a Twitter. But if you follow her Twitter or her YouTube channel, her and Sonny have been going back and forth for, I guess, the better part of a year now, for different reasons. I guess Sonny made a comment about Trina being a former porn star, and now, unless she's been underneath a rock, you've seen where Sonny has now signed a deal to Vivid to make an actual porn movie and stuff in lieu of selling her WWE Hall of Fame ring. And once that announcement went out, like, Trina Michaels has gone on a rampage with videos and tweets and stuff directed towards Sonny. Have you guys seen any of this?
I have not.
Nor have I, but doesn't surprise me that Sonny got into a Twitter war and then got into a pot calling the kettle black type of deal.
Well, we don't need to bring race into this, okay, sign guy? We all know that Sonny does racist things sometimes.
Well, I mean, that was legitimately, like, it is some of the funniest stuff ever. Because, you know, and it's funny because the promos are really horrible. Like, Trina is not the greatest female on the mic whatsoever. She's not great whatsoever. But just the things that she says, for instance, one of the videos, and I'm paraphrasing here, is that Sonny was talking, you know, oh, look, it's a porn star, turned into a rat who wants to be a wrestler. And now look at you, you're a rat who wanted to be a wrestler, and now you're a porn star. You know, who's making money laying on their back now? I mean, just seriously, it amazes me that they have so much heat. But the best part of this whole little beef, I guess, they got going on is the spontaneous places that Trina Michaels will decide to cut a shoot video on Sonny. I think one of the videos she actually like did a promo about Sonny in front of a Jesus Saves billboard on the side of the highway.
Awesome. All right, Killer Kev, do you want to try giving our next guest a call?
Yep, here we go.
Excellent. This is the Undisputed Wrestling Show on Angry Marks Podcast Network. We are talking to Scott Teal, who is an author and editor of a lot of great pro wrestling books, and he is also a wrestling historian. He's worked with guys like our former guest Ivan Koloff, Ole Anderson, co-authored a book with Stan Hansen, you know, James J. Dillon, the who's of pro wrestling. So, Scott, quick question for you. We always ask this question. I've done a little bit of research. I know that you got into pro wrestling in the 60s, but, you know, let our listeners know how your interests were piqued with pro wrestling.
Oh, just started watching one morning at a girlfriend's house. The first girlfriend I ever had. She invited me over to dinner with her family one Sunday afternoon, and everybody all of a sudden, as soon as we were through eating, everybody got up and ran for the living room. I said, "What are we doing?" And she said, "We're going to watch wrestling." And we sat down and watched wrestling. I'd never seen it in my life, but man, I was hooked from that point on.
Now, what area of the country were you in?
Florida. I grew up in Bradenton, Florida, and the matches came from Tampa, Florida. And they had the show, the program aired actually on Saturday night, and then they had it on a different channel on Sunday afternoon about 1 o'clock, and came from Tampa. And I used to watch it. After that, I caught it the next Saturday afternoon and the next Sunday night, and the next Sunday afternoon, and I never missed it. I watched it twice a week. It was the same show both times, but I watched it both times.
And these were the days before DVR, so you were appointment television.
Oh, those were the days before remote controls. We had 4 channels. You had the 3 major networks, and then UHF channel. And you had to get up out of your seat to change the channel. But yes, you had to watch it when something was on. If you missed it, you missed it. You know, they didn't show it again. And wrestling, of course, was unlike other TV shows, other television shows. You could wait till the summer. I know they don't even do that now, but back in those days, in the summertime, that's when they showed reruns of all the TV programs. But wrestling, if you missed it, you missed it. They didn't air it, again, because they were always doing something new 52 weeks a year.
That is so true. So who were some of the guys that you remember from those days of you getting into watching it?
Well, the ones that really got me hooked was the Great Malenko, Hans Mortier. Those guys were just unbelievable. And the Medics, and the Medics were a masked team, and of course, they were feuding with Jack Briscoe and Nick Kozak at the time. And that's sort of what really caught my interest, though, was the Gladiator was a masked wrestler in Florida, and the fans had supposedly taken a collection up and bought him a watch as their appreciation for his good deeds in the ring. And sometime during the TV taping, supposedly, the Great Malenko and Hans Mortier broke into his locker to get the watch to break it. Well, Joe Scarpa, Chief J. Strongbow, and Wahoo McDaniel were there as a team, and they went to stop them. Of course, they beat Joe Scarpa up real bad, and that's actually what was on television that first day I watched. They came out on the TV set dragging a bloody Joe Scarpa, and he was just saying, all he kept saying over and over was, "I tried to save the watch. I tried to save the watch." I mean, I can still hear it. And it was just like a soap opera, and I had to tune in the next week to find out what happened.
Well, excellent. I'm going to kick it over to Sign Guy to ask a few questions. Sign Guy, what do you have for Mr. Scott Teal?
Well, Mr. Teal, the first thing I want to ask you is, what led to you writing books with some of these wrestlers to get their autobiographies out there?
Well, just to give you a quick rundown, I guess it was probably 2 or 3 months after I started watching wrestling. I found magazines on the newsstands. I sent a letter to one of the magazines. They used to have letters to the editor, and it was Wrestling Review, and they actually printed my letter, and I thought that was so cool. And I was just really I love the wrestling in Florida, but I wanted to know how it worked. Even back in those days, nobody was allowed to learn those things. And I went to the libraries, and I'd go to the newsstands to look through the newspapers from other cities. And eventually I ended up taking a camera to the match. I bought a camera and started taking pictures at the matches, writing articles for the magazines. And I met a few of the wrestlers during that time. I sort of kept a low profile because I didn't want to, get kicked out. And when I came up to Nashville in 1976, I sort of kept a low profile here as well. I went to the matches a few times, took pictures, sent articles to the magazine. And one of the guys I rode down with Don Green down to Huntsville, Alabama to a show. And while I was there, one of the guys came up and said, "Nick Goulas, the promoter, wants to see you in the back." Well, I just knew I was going to get my walking papers. That he was going to say he didn't want me around. He didn't want, snooping around or taking pictures but he asked me, he said he had heard of me and he had seen me around, seen my stuff, and wanted to know if I'd come to work for him. And so I worked for him for about 7 years, I believe. I did the arena programs, sold all kinds of souvenir gimmicks that I had made, and sold fixtures to the wrestlers. Then in 1980, when Nick sold his promotion to Buddy Fuller, I worked for Buddy Fuller for about 7 weeks. Buddy sold to Jerry Jarrett, and Jerry already had his program, so he didn't need what I did. So at that point, I just said, "Okay, that's fine," and I put wrestling behind me, quote unquote, forever. Of course, you know how it is. I'm sure you've heard of that. Once you get into wrestling, you don't get out. So that was about 1980, and 96, I started writing a magazine called Whatever Happened To. And what I did was interviews with the wrestlers and telling about where they've been, where they were then, interviews about their careers. And I did that for about 12 years or so. And in 90...
That was kind of like podcasting, Mr. Teal. That was kind of like podcasting before podcasting was around.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And then in 2003, Ole Anderson and I got talking, and he made the suggestion we write a book. And I thought, yeah, right. And I didn't even call him. Well, I mean, we talked fairly regular, but I didn't even broach the subject for 6 months. Cause, if you think of one person in the wrestling business, and I'm talking about the kayfabe, even then it was sort of kayfabe, who would be the last person you would actually go up to and ask anything about pro wrestling, the insides of pro wrestling? Well, it would probably be Ole Anderson, because you're afraid he'd hand you your butt. And but he was serious, and one day he asked me, he says, "When are we going to do this book?" I said, "Well, if you're serious, we'll go ahead with it." And that's really how it got started. From that, I did 53 issues of that Whatever Happened To magazine with all the interviews, and started with Ole's book. After I got Ole's book out, J.J. Dillon saw it, read it, and came to me, asked me if I'd like to write his book with him. And next thing I knew, Jody Hamilton called, Ivan Koloff, and it just moved on from there. And so since then, I've published 23 books, and I've got right now I got about 5 in the hopper. They're just all at pretty much the finishing stages. I just have to do the layouts and a little bit of tweaking on the final edits, and I've got several several guys just waiting for me to give them a call so we can get started on theirs as well.
When you were doing the Ole Anderson book, and it was a great book, I've read it a couple of times.
Thank you.
Now, were you concerned at all at the book being marketed for all audiences, considering some of the saltier language that Ole Anderson used in that book, or were you looking strictly at more of an adult audience for that particular book?
I was looking strictly pretty much for an adult audience. I didn't really think we'd have any children reading it. I don't know if you remember, though, in that book, well, actually for quite a few books, I didn't print the whole word, like if it was the F word or the SH word. I don't talk like that. I don't use those words, but you can't hardly print a book by somebody like Ole Anderson without using them, because that's the way he talks. And, of course, I used the F with a long dash or SH with a long dash. I didn't like printing the words. Of course, now it doesn't seem to be, nobody seems like it's that big a deal, so I just print the words as they are, because that's how they talk. I don't really care for it, but how can you tell somebody's story? I don't know if you've ever sat around with Ole Anderson, but my goodness, every other word is F or, something like that. And I've been in some embarrassing situations with Ole where we've been in restaurants with families sitting around, and he's telling his stories and he's using all these 4-letter words. And oh my, several times I've been wanting to crawl under the table.
Now, if you could choose someone that's still around that has never released a book and help them tell their story, who's someone out there that you would most like to tell that story in a book form?
Well, right now I've actually got the guys that the way you put it. There's 2 guys right now I'm actually working on books with, and they would be right at the top of my list of guys that I really want to get their story told, and that would be Dick Steinborn, with whom I've done about 80 hours worth of interview work. I've just got to find time to transcribe the audio. That's the biggest problem. And a guy named Frankie Kane, who you probably remember more as the Great Mephisto. Both of those guys are in their 80s, and they have minds just like the steel trap. They remember things going back into the 30s and the 40s. And I remember not long ago I asked Dick Steinborn about a particular match in Sunnyside Garden with Skull Murphy. He told me the finish, and he told me things that happened in the match, and he wasn't making them up, because I've asked him since, and he tells me the exact same thing in the exact same. Everything is just exactly like he told me the first time. And but those are the 2 guys that I'm more excited about, I think, than anybody else about getting their story told. And that's, again, it's Dick Steinborn and Frankie Kane, a.k.a. the Great Mephisto.
Now, when guys approach you for help writing their books, what's the normal process they go through? I know a lot of wrestlers are not necessarily familiar with how the book industry works. So what's the process from start to finish if a wrestler decides that they want to get their story out there and they approach you to help them get the book out?
Everyone is different. Ole, JJ, Ivan, Jody Hamilton, pretty much the way I started out doing it, I have a huge list of questions that when I was doing those Whatever Happened To magazines with all the interviews, I developed this huge list of questions that I would ask, cover just about everything you could think of. And the first 5 or 6 books, and many after that, but the first 5 or 6 actually were straight interviews. I'd interview them. I'd take all the material. I'd type it up off the audio tapes. I'd work it all together into a chronological order type thing. Then I'd end up calling it back, because I'd have them, as I did that, I'd come up with other questions that I'd think about I should have asked or I wish I had asked. And then I get those questions, I type those up, insert them in the places where they go, and eventually, just evolve it into a book. I'm at the point now where I just can't do that, because I can do the interview, but I can't do all the, the transcribing, all the stuff, because I got too many other books I'm trying to, get finished up and I want to get to. But I've had different guys do different things. I've had a couple of them Emerson Murray, Downtown Bruno. They sent me their books, pretty well written. Bob Allen, Dean Silverstone, those guys that, I would take it and I'd still do a pretty heavy edit, and I'd wind up with, a lot of questions as I read through their manuscript. Had a lot of questions I'd send back to them. Stan Hansen, he even did a great job with his book. He had about 178 pages when he sent it to me. I sent it back with my questions inside his writing, and that 178 pages with my questions turned into 320 pages. I had 150 pages of questions. But he answered everything in detail. And when I got it back, I just fleshed it all together again, sort of worked it all, made it flow well, and we wound up with a 420-page book. But then you've got guys like Tony Atlas, Don Fargo. They don't read and they don't write. So their books were strictly me taking all their memories and their interviewing them and pulling everything out of them that I could possibly get, and actually then writing the book. But it's like a tag team thing in those cases, I couldn't write their stories the way as well as they were, because I didn't, they're the guys with the stories. They give me their input, and then I take what they give me and work it into a readable fashion. So it's something that, it works together. I couldn't have done it myself. And of course, not being able to read or write, neither Tony nor Don could have done that either. I guess, I've also reprinted a few books, like Lou Thesz's Hooker was already written, Drawing Heat by Jim Friedman, and the recent Whatever Happened to Gorgeous George by Joe Jarris. I didn't do any editing to those. I wanted them in the original form, but I also did interviews with the authors, included that. In Lou Thesz's book, I added a whole slew of stuff to the end from interviews that myself and J. Michael Kenyon had done over the years with Lou. So it wound up to be quite bigger book than it was when Lou first published it. That's pretty much how it goes. Mike Mooneyham, of course, wrote his book, Mid-Atlantic Wrestling Memories. I just got one from Chava Guerrero, who did a super job writing it himself, and I'm just going to have to do a very little bit of editing, a little bit of grammar, a few words here and there, but he's done a really bang-up job of writing it out himself. So all of them every one of them is different. They all have their different ways of, going about it.
And what's it like knowing that you've gone from a fan of professional wrestling, getting involved through the magazines and so forth, and now fans can go into the local library and pull out a book that you helped write and learn more about some of the wrestlers that you were watching when you first got involved in watching professional wrestling, and guys that were starting out when you were starting out in the magazines?
Oh, it's great. I mean, my passion is just to preserve as much of our history as I can. I remember when I was doing my Whatever Happened to magazine, my goal was one day I was going to write a regular book, and I was going to be able to see my book in a bookstore. Well, I come to find out distributors for bookstores take 60% of the cover price.
Woo!
I pay for the same with Amazon. If I send a book to Amazon, they take 60%. I pay for the printing, which is, 20-25%, and then I pay for the shipping. So you wind up with about $1 out of a $20 book. It's just not worth it. And bookstores can order 10,000 books, so I have to pay to get 10,000 books printed, send them the books, and if they don't sell, say they only sell 600 of them, they can send that 9,400 books back to me. They're dog-eared from people looking through them. I can't sell them as new. There's been so many, self-publishers have just gone bankrupt because they try to go through bookstores. So I don't sell through bookstores, but that doesn't bother me. My whole purpose of doing this is just to preserve the history. We're we're losing so many of these guys so quickly that if they don't tell their story before they're gone, if somebody doesn't get their story down, then that history is lost. One of the great losses to me is somebody like John Tolos. never was interviewed by anybody that I know of, in depth, never told his story. And he must have, I bet he had thousands of stories in his head. And when he died, all that was gone. And that's all because of the nature of the wrestling business. You know, nothing in the past up until, 2000, in the 2000s, nothing was written down because the promoters didn't want things written down. They didn't want that kind of information saved. So we're losing every day, we're losing more and more of our history. So that's my goal right now. I retired from my full-time job with UPS just, December 31st this last year. And I'm just now, I was with them 37 years, and now I'm spending my retirement years just enjoying writing about wrestling and working on wrestling related projects.
Scott, this is Zane once again.
Yeah.
We've had Ivan Koloff on before, and I know you've worked extensively with him. You've done, 2 books with him?
I've done 1 book with him.
Oh, okay, 1 book. I had the opportunity to call in and talk to Roddy Piper on his podcast at one point, and my question to him was, who is not in the WWE Hall of Fame that should be? What's the most glaring omission? And I suggested Ivan Koloff, and he was shocked that Ivan wasn't in yet. I once again, I'm shocked as well. I think that he's the most deserving. Do you think he's the most deserving? And who else do you think are glaring omissions from wrestling's history that are not in yet?
Yeah, when you were talking about Ivan, that's exactly true. If you had asked me who's the most glaring omission from the Hall of Fame, that comes to my mind first before anything else. There is nobody else I can think of that's not in the Hall of Fame that is more deserving than Ivan Koloff. I mean, not only was he the WWF heavyweight champion, but he was with the company for a long, long time. And he's main evented not only for the WWF, but every territory just about in the world. He was a headliner for all the years that he was in the wrestling business. And it's a shame. It really is. I'm hot and cold on, I don't really care much about the WWE Hall of Fame. To me, it's a money-making deal for Vince. It's something he does to get the names out there and make some extra money and, have his big show. And, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not that big a deal. But to me, to Ivan, it is a big deal. And to me, that Ivan's not in it is a big deal. So I think it's a real shame. I can't say right offhand that I can think of anybody else that that's not in it that should be. I'd have to look at the list, but Ivan, that to me almost just shows that it's not really the WWE Hall of Fame really isn't all that important when they leave somebody out with the importance of Ivan Koloff.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And WWE Hall of Fame, it matters to some people. It doesn't matter to other people. But it is one of those things where you're being recognized in front of the world. And, I'm sure that it would help all those guys out with their appearances and everything. So, I don't know. I think they should do the right thing and get Ivan in. I really do. So,
absolutely. What you say is true. It doesn't matter what you think of it. Like I say, I don't care. I don't follow today's product. I haven't watched a wrestling TV show since 1986. It's not what I grew up on. It's not today and since then, and it's just changed so much. And I'm not knocking it. It's just not what I enjoy. And even though, like you say, you may not agree with the Hall of Fame, you may not like it, you may like it, but at the same time, Ivan should be recognized because if it's so important and it is recognizing the best of the best, Ivan definitely falls in that category.
Yeah. Now, if our listeners are just being introduced to you, well, we thank you for being on. What would be the first book that they should pick up that you've had a hand in if they've never booked by you?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'll tell you this. I've also got a new series of books that'll be out. Well, the first one came out a couple months ago. It's called Wrestling Archive Project. And it's Wrestling Archive Project Classic 20th Century Mat Memories. And what it is I've taken 14 of the previous interviews published in my Whatever Happened To, plus 2 new interviews that I've done this past year. One of them was with Buddy Colt, who's a big name in Florida and Oklahoma and quite a few Georgia. I have about 110, 120 page interview with Buddy. I also have a pretty detailed interview with Adrian Street. He's gonna kill me. A nice interview with Adrian Street, plus the 14 interviews. People read these interviews. To me, the interviews are the most fascinating reading of anything you will read, biographies or anything, because you feel like you're sitting across the kitchen table from these guys as you read these interviews, and you feel like they're telling you their story. And it's really cool. I have more response from people for my interview book and for those old Whatever Happened To's really than anything else I've done. And I'm not saying that just because that's something I did personally, but it's because it's the wrestlers are just sitting there answering my questions. They are fully open. They have no qualms about opening up to me about anything. And a lot of that goes back to the relationship I had with a lot of them back in the, 70s because I traveled with a lot of them. So if anybody's going to read one book, I'd say start with the Wrestling Archive Project. And then from there, I would say any of the biographies. It's just, the guys are so good about telling their story. They're open. And every one of them is different. Ole's book is about a guy that got into the business the hard way, and he became a booker. He was very instrumental behind the scenes of Georgia Championship Wrestling. J.J. Dillon, about a guy who loved the business and wanted to get in. He was a fan, big-time fan. Got in, became a great manager. Jody Hamilton, a great book about what it is to be a heel in professional wrestling. And every one of the books is sort of a different take on what pro wrestling is. Gene Silverstone's, his book is called I Ain't No Pig Farmer. His book is about his introduction into pro wrestling as a guy that published and sold programs at the arenas in Seattle, and eventually became a wrestling promoter of a pretty decent sized promotion. He promoted several shows a week for I think it was 2 years, I believe. But any of the biographies, I'd say, you can't go wrong. I can't think of any of you go wrong with.
And how do our listeners get a hold of these books? Because you said that you don't like going through bookstores or through Amazon. What's the best way for them to get your books?
Okay. Most of my books are available on Kindle through Amazon, but the other way to get them is just go to my website, which is crowbarpress.com. And when you go to crowbarpress.com, everything is right there on one page. It has a link just about every single thing I do there. Books. I have classic wrestling poster replicas from the old days. Photos, you name it. I've got all kinds of different stuff, magazines, results books, and I just, encourage everybody to, I had this talk with somebody the other day. I hope if the people who really, really love wrestling as it once was will take advantage of these books. And now I'm not talking about just mine. I'm talking about any of them. Start reading, because that's the only way you'll learn about what professional wrestling was really like in the day. Because the guys are disappearing. Shoot interviews are great, but to me, there's nothing like the books because you get so much more out of them. So, but yeah, crowbarpress.com. That's the easiest way.
I've got one more quick question, then I'm going to kick it over to the birthday boy, Will Huckabee. Stone Cold Steve Austin has praised Gary Hart's book that was very minimal published. Is there any way that you can get a hold of that and publish it?
I've already tried. I've asked, cause Philip Variali, he helped me a bit with J.J. Dillon's book. He sent a lot of questions about WCW because I'm a more before 88, 86 type guy, and he knew more about JJ's career after 88, 86, 87, and so he sent me a lot of questions, and I was able to ask JJ those questions and get them into the book. And then Philip helped me, he proofread it for me. So he did a super job, I thought, with Gary's book. But when I called him and asked him why it was no longer available, he said he's thought about it. He just I can't remember exactly what he told me. Somebody told me he's afraid of a lawsuit or something. I don't know over what, but, and I've even asked, I think it was Chad Hart, one of Gary's boys, about it, and he didn't know what was going on. He said they sort of left it up to Philip. So I don't know what's going on with that. I would publish it in a heartbeat because I think it's a great book, and I think it needs to be out there. That's same with what I was saying about Drawing Heat and whatever happened to Gorgeous George and Hooker. You know, the reason I republish those books is because they need to be out there. They need to be available forever for fans, you know, so that fans remember these guys and remember these stories.
Well, if there's any more pressing you can do, I'd love to read that. Heard so many great things about it. So
thank you. Well, write Philip, write Chad Hart, either of the Hart boys, and tell them.
Well, and I know that you'd pay it the respect that it deserves. So I know you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I even told Philip I wouldn't touch it. You know, most of my books, I tell the guys, even when it's like Chavo Guerrero, you know, he says, I really want it printed just like it is. I said, Chavo, I said, I won't change a thing substantially. I said, but I do want to edit it as far as grammar and, you know, things like that. I want it to flow correctly. And I said, I won't do much, but you'll see everything I do when I do go through it. Anything you don't agree with, we won't have that in there. We'll be fine. And I told Philip that. I said, you know, I'll print it just as you have it. I won't change a thing. I won't even edit it if you want, you know. But so, yeah, I'd tell everybody just get a hold of Philip or the Harts and just say, hey, we want this book. And I do, like I said, myself, I do believe it's a book that it's very important. It's got a lot of great information.
All right, Scott, I'm going to kick it over to the Morning Star, Will Huckabee, the birthday boy, Will Huckabee. Will, what do you have for Scott Teal?
First of all, Mr. Teal, I would like to say I am a huge fan of your books. I actually have 5 of your books, actually, on Kindle, thanks to my wife and stuff, because, you know, I'm more of a paper kind of guy and stuff, but my wife actually is a huge proponent of Kindle and stuff, and when she showed me that there was actually wrestling biographies on Kindle and stuff, I started reading them nonstop.
Yeah.
And so I've read some of your books, including The Hooker, which is the story of Luthez, who actually, I don't think Zane actually brought it up, was the actual trainer of one of our co-hosts, Q-Ball Carmichael.
Yeah.
But my first question is, you know, especially with the book Long Day, Short Page and stuff, you kind of touched on a few seconds ago about guys, you know, wanting it to be published and stuff, the way they wrote it and stuff. Has it ever come to a point where guys are just, you know, what do you do in a situation like that when guys are so adamant about, hey, you know, I don't want this change, and you're like, hey, because like I said, I've read a lot of your books and they flow so well, like you just said, they flow so well that you actually think that the wrestler actually wrote it. And if anybody who knows a professional wrestler knows that most of the time, because of concussion and stuff, we can't write the way you do. But what do you do when you have a situation where you know, as a professional author, this will make the book flow so much better, but the wrestler or the subject is just, hey, I want it exactly in the book just like this. What do you do?
You know, I've never had anybody that was just very adamant about wanting it just like, you know, the way they did it, because very few of them actually wrote the whole thing without, you know, I take it back. There's some that did write, but not a lot of them, you know, and most of them, I don't ever approach it, you know, as in, you know, this isn't written very well or anything like that. I never say that. Generally, I just say, let me show you what I do. I want you to keep an open mind. I say, but I want you to see what I do before we go with this thing. So that when they send it to me, I take the first chapter and I use strikeouts on every word that should come out, and I insert like if I change the way a sentence reads, I insert my words in a different color. And I put the original paragraph, in the first chapter, I'll put the original paragraph and then my edited version. And then the second paragraph and my edited version. And I say, I want you to read them both and tell me which one you think sounds the best, which one flows the best, because that's what it's all about to me. It's not so much about, it is about the grammar, but it's not so much as that as I want it to flow. I want people to it just sort of flows and it's real easy to read as you go through. And I have never had anybody argue about it once they get it. The same with Chavo Guerrero. You know, he did. I guess if anybody pushed me at all about not wanting changes, it was Chavo. And I sent him the first chapter of his book not long ago, and he absolutely loved it. He says he loves what I'm doing, the way I did it, because he could see it. See, I didn't come at him and say, you did this bad, you did this bad. I just did a rewrite and let him read it. And he realizes once he read it, yeah, there are some things that could be changed in it without changing anything substantial as far as, you know, what he says. It's just changing a few words here and there, or flipping a sentence around a little bit to make it flow a little bit more. But I've never had a problem with anybody that's really been, you know, upset about not wanting things changed. I will say something about the book. I think you mentioned Long Days and Short Pays by Hal West. Some people have asked me who was Hal West. Well, even somebody recently, my most recent book is by Mark Fleming. Somebody said on one of the Facebook groups, he says, who is Mark Fleming that he gets to have a book? Well, that set me off at first. I said, you know, show some respect. But here's the thing. It isn't because the guys that have the best books aren't necessarily the main eventers. To me, I publish books not because of who they are, because I've got main event guys that I haven't sold that many books of, and I've got other guys who are underneath card who we've done real well with. But it's a guy like Hal West. His greatest claim to fame was wrestling one time for Vern Gagne on Vern Gagne's TV in Minneapolis. That's the biggest he ever got. Every other thing he wrestled for several years in Indiana and Ohio on independent shows, you know, on small outlaw shows. But his story, it was just fascinating to me about a guy who wanted it so bad that he would work all these little shows. He'd drive 50, 100, 200 miles to these small shows for $25 or $15 or maybe even a hot dog. It was just fascinating to me. So that's why I published a book by somebody like Hal West. And I say that with all due respect. Hal told me, you know, he knew exactly where his place was in the business, and he knew he was just a guy, independent guy who just, you know, sort of barely made a dent in the business. He understood that. So that's why I say it with all due respect. His story to me was fascinating. I don't publish books to make money. That's never been my goal, because I had a good job with UPS. I'm retired now. I've got a pension. I don't have to write for money. You know, I want to make some money for the guys, but I don't have to do it for that reason. I do it because I love it. And as I said earlier, I want to preserve the history of the business as much as I can before these guys are gone, because once they are, you know, we have no history.
You're so right. You know, like I said, one of my favorite books is actually Long Days, Short Pays and stuff, and because it tells, like you said, tells the story not a guy who never really got into TV time, wrestling a lot of what they were called back then, outlaw shows and stuff, and still, and like you said, knew his place as far as professional wrestling went. And by all accounts and means, I guess his story is kind of a tragedy as far as professional wrestling goes, but the way you write it, it doesn't seem like that. It still seems like he came out with a moral victory. My question is, with that being said, is how do you come across, you know, when you're writing these books, the guys don't have happy endings. They don't end up going to WWE or Jim Crockett Promotions. They don't wrestle, they'll do a match on WrestleMania, Starrcade or whatever. How do you choose to select, you know, somebody like H.G. West, because a lot of people don't know him. I mean, how did you actually meet this guy who never actually made a dent in professional wrestling as far as the grand scheme of things goes? Did he approach you about the book? Did you approach him about it? How did that whole book come along?
I didn't catch that last. You're sort of muffled. I didn't catch those last couple sentences in your question.
Oh, I'm sorry. My question is, especially with H.G. West, how did you meet this guy? And whose idea was it to write a book?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. It's funny. A lot of these times, I come across these things and I think about things like, how did I ever get in touch with him in the first place? I believe, if I remember correctly, he was online in some group or something, and he might have mentioned something about him wrestling, and I wrote and asked him who he was, because I had never heard of him. I mean, I don't even think he was so out of the loop as far as results and being somebody you would have heard about that even with my extensive database of wrestling results that encompasses worldwide matches for, 40 years, I don't think I have him in a single one of my databases, any results showing where he wrestled, who he wrestled, or anything. So I believe I wrote him to ask him about his career, and when he got telling me, it just sort of struck me. I thought, this might be an interesting story. This guy, he seems to know what he's talking about. What he told me was interesting enough that it piqued my interest. I thought, I might see maybe doing an interview with this guy. And then he ended up telling me that he had written a book. And so he is one of the ones who sent me a fairly well written book. And we, of course, again, I send him my questions. There's always questions in between that people don't think about, and usually the readers do think about it. And when I write a book or help with a book, I want it to be as complete as possible. And I don't want the readers to be thinking of the questions that I thought about to ask him. I don't want somebody to say, well, what about this or what about that? I want it to be complete. And so that's pretty much how that came about. He told me he had something written. I asked him if he'd like to send it to me, and I'd take a look at it, and he did, and I was ready to go with it. I thought it was just great.
All right, this is my last question, Mr. Teal. All the books you've written about all the many different subjects and stuff, if you could go back and rewrite somebody's story, just write the autobiography all over, or their biography all over again, who would that be?
Ooh, boy. That's a hard one, man. I don't know that I would. I don't know. I wouldn't go back and change any of them. I really don't. I don't think I'd go back and redo any of them. I laugh because Stan Hansen's book, I had edited. I had read it through and sent him all those 150 pages of questions. He sent me all the answers, and I edited all that stuff in. I worked it all together, moved things around. Just blasted it, making it just flow just perfectly the way I thought Stan would want, the way I would want. I sent it back to Stan for a final read, and I thought I had done the final edit, and man, he ended up. It was like 4 months later, and he sends me he said, I'd like to include this stuff too, and update on a few of these things. And so, of course, in the book, he said something about, I appreciate Joe Higuchi. He's a great guy. I always enjoy seeing him. Well, then about 3 paragraphs later, he says, I'm sad to hear Joe Higuchi died. Well, what happened was he sent me that part after I had done everything. So when I went and inserted it, I sort of forgot that he had been talking about Joe in the first person or present tense. So it sort of came across sort of crazy. So there's a few things like that I'd change, but other than as far as rewriting, I don't think I'd rewrite anything. There's probably a lot of questions I'd ask these guys that I've thought of since then, but I wouldn't rewrite any of them.
All right, Zane.
All right, Scott, we've run a little overtime. I'm sorry to keep you.
No.
I want to encourage our listeners to go to crowbarpress.com. They can read more about you, check out all of your books, and check out everything else that you have for sale. What would you like to say to our listeners before we wrap up?
I guess the only thing I would say, it's sort of along the lines of what we've been talking about. When you get books, don't necessarily buy books because the guys were big main eventers. I've talked to main eventers with interviews, and there's some guys that were on. Well, I just use one, and I hate to use this as an example because he just passed away. It was Archie Goldie, Mongolian Stomper. I asked him. I did this shoot interview with Archie. I asked him 18 pages of questions, and he ended up. We got an hour and a half out of 18 pages of questions in real small print. Everybody kept saying this is going to be the greatest interview ever. Just because a guy was a main eventer and a superstar wrestler does not mean he has any concept of writing or being able to tell his story. It just doesn't work that way. And yet you have guys who were worked underneath. And for all their career. All they did was jobs, from a lot of them in the first and second match. But in my Whatever Happened To interviews, some of those guys have the most fascinating stories, and you learn more about the business from them than you do the guys in the main event. So don't take it at face value just because a guy wasn't a main eventer that it's not going to have a great story, because often it's the opposite. But I appreciate y'all having me on here. Happy birthday, Will, by the way.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, because Dane and Kevin all know haven't wished me a happy birthday yet.
He did call you the birthday boy a couple times before you came on.
See, I got your back, Morningstar. Well, thank you so much, Scott. We really appreciate it, you coming on with us. And we'd love to have you on again when the next book out of your series comes out, if we can talk with you again so we can talk more about it.
That'd be wonderful. You just call me anytime. Just or have Rick get in touch with me. Either way, I'd love to be on again. It's an honor to be able to be on the show, and I do appreciate you asking me. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, thank you so much. You have a fantastic evening.
Great. Y'all do too. Take care.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. We are running into Impact Implosions time, so we need to wrap up. I do want to say the FWF, Functified Wrestling Federation, having their big shows coming up February 27th and 28th in South Bend and Valparaiso. They're really helping us out later this month with Robbie E. and Demolition Axe and Smash coming on, so we want to give a big shout-out to them. So plan your calendars accordingly. Next week, we've got Malcolm Monroe II and ROH star Moose is going to be on. Okay, I'll hit it to Sign Guy. Sign Guy, got any quick plugs before we go?
Sure. Tomorrow night, Total Dudes will have Beast Barnett as our special guest, reviewing the third episode of the current season. On Friday, Nurse Sanity from Oklahoma on Sign Guy's Wrestling Show. Sunday, Promoters Days. We got a bunch of promoters coming on to talk about that aspect of the business. I'm picking up my teacher, so I won't be down at NWA Blue Collar this week, but go support them. And my teacher will be up here, his first ever Pacific Northwest loop as a signed contract. So,
wow, that's awesome. Will, any quick plugs before we go?
Yep, I was about to say, this Saturday I'm going to be at WVCW and stuff, wrestling and everything in West Virginia. And I'm going to have some big things going on Instagram in like the next week or two, so people pay attention to my Facebook and my social media. You should be in for a lot of surprises and stuff.
Excellent. I will not be at WCWO this weekend. My son has a play that he is in. He's the sergeant in the Pirates of Penzance. He's got 2 awesome songs. So I'll be at his performances at the Lawrence United Methodist Church in Lawrence, Indiana. If you guys want to see some 4th graders doing Pirates of Penzance, you can also see the Bearded Wonder there. So for Will Huckabee, the Morningstar Will Huckabee, for Sign Guy, for Q-Ball Carmichael, for Drew Skills, for producer Killa Kev, and for our executive producer, the Prophet Rick Craig, you sad sack, fruit booties, have a fantastic week. We'll talk to you next week.